Hi, I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And welcome to ReDIScover, a space where we celebrate the childlike qualities that make up the essence of who we are while engaging with the world around us, both authentically and imaginatively.
Nothing is off the table here, and we talk a little bit...
or a lot.
About, well, everything.
Around here, we're always rediscovering, sharing empowering stories, and connecting our hearts and minds with every facet of life.
While we, of course, talk about the real stuff,
we invite you to be a part of the conversation as we broaden our perspectives, release limitations,
and grow to create our most joyful and fulfilling lives together.
So come along with us as we rediscover all the best parts of you
and bring a little bit of magic into your day. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a brand new month of ReDIScover. If you've been around here for a while, you know that every month we have a new theme, and this month's theme is called London Bridge because we are introducing you to some people and taking you around the city of London, and that is the bridge that connects every single one of the 3 episodes you are getting this month. And we're kicking off the month of May with a very exciting guest, someone you may know from Instagram and TikTok fame, the hilarious and incomparable MrThomasEnglish.
Vinny is such a delight. We are so thankful we got the opportunity to sit down and chat with him. You may know Vinny from his videos about originally teaching. When he was a teacher, he would have really funny skits about what it was like to be in the classroom. And then he's kind of gravitated towards topics that are more authentic to him as a person. So he gravitated towards making videos about American to English comparisons, which are hilariously on point. And then also he has a little bit of a Disney spin on his content as well. He's a big Disney merch fan and just a big Disney fan in general. So Vinny's story is so interesting too, because it's very much rooted in authenticity, and he is such a clear channel for the universe to work through him and make all of his dreams come true in this really seemingly divine timing. We got to really reflect back with him during this episode and see how all the pieces interconnected. And guys, his journey is incredible. So we are excited to share that with you.
Yeah, I felt like the whole time we were talking to Vinny, I just had this sense that he had this youthful exuberance about him that made him, as Jess said, such a clear channel for the universe to work, because he saw the limitations very at face value. Anything that anyone told him or any limitation he faced, he really just acknowledged it, and that was it. Didn't let it come along on his journey with him. And I think that that's so powerful. And I really think that, you know, all laughs and joking aside, and I promise you will laugh during this episode, there is such wisdom and such empowerment behind all of the words and stories that Vinny shared. So we're so excited to share him with you, but we hope you'll join us for our conversation with Vinny, and we hope you'll stick around for the rest of May because, as I said, we're having 3 episodes this month. We're going to travel to London together, and it's going to be so much fun.
Yes. So without further ado, here is our interview with MrThomasEnglish, also known as Vinny Thomas. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And welcome to this week's episode of ReDIScover. We have a very special guest today who is the embodiment of living authentically and being true to yourself. And he's also a Disney fan, which just fits all the buckets of ReDIScover. So we are so thrilled to introduce to you Vinny, who is also known as MrThomasEnglish on social media. And we are going to have a super fun conversation today. Vinny, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You may know Vinny from the millions of laughs he gets on TikTok, or if you've followed him over on Instagram, he has probably yelled something at you in a British accent that is so relatable and hilarious.
So, Vinny, we would love if you could give us and our listeners your backstory and tell us a little bit about yourself to kick off the episode.
Thank you so much for having me. So backstory from me, I'm originally from England. I'm from Essex in England, which is like just outside of London. I basically have been obsessed with social media since I was like 12 years old. I did like singing videos, and I'm tone deaf. I can't sing. Like, back when like YouTube first started, I remember like High School Musical 2 came out, and I did like every day like the duet, and I sang both parts and very off key.
Yes.
And I remember I put it on YouTube. It got like 300 views, which like my school was like 1,000 people in total. So it was mainly people from my school, and like people would sing like every day to me down the like corridor at school, and I was like, okay, this is bad, and I had to like take it down. But I used to always just like love social media, but I was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna like be a social media personality or anything like that, but I just absolutely love consuming social media. My degree was actually in like English literature and media and communications, like looking into like different media trends and things like that. And then, yeah, I used to, at one point when I was in university, I did a series that was like 100 days of banter instead of like the 100 days of like happiness or joy that people did. Like, this was like years ago. And then it's a really strange journey of how I got here. It started off as I used to always do these videos, make these memes, and it started to like get good traction. And then I got placed at a summer camp in America, in Indiana. And one of the first things they said to us was, you're not allowed to have public social media. Like if you do, it needs to be completely like snuffed out. You need to private it. So I kind of just accepted, like, while I do summer camp, like I can't do this anymore. And then through doing summer camp, I like started like working on cruise ships at one point after I graduated, working with kids. And then I also did another summer camp in Arizona where I now met my wife. And it was my wife that like pushed me into teaching, because she was like, you've worked with kids for so many years, you've got an English degree, like why not just be an English teacher? And I was like, okay, then like that means I have to be an adult and have like a career instead of just going here, there and everywhere working with kids. So then, yeah, I got into teaching. And at that point, I'd kind of made some of my social media more like public, because I was like, it's not as strict as people were making out before. But then I did my like practicum placement in England with my student teaching, and my mentor was really like, you cannot have any, like they tried to like foul me and kick me off the course because of my social media, and I was like, okay, I can't be a teacher and have social media. Like it was completely drilled into me, like you need to choose what you want to do. And at that point I was like, well, I'm moving to America, I need a career, and at the moment like I'm paying all this money to like do this course, I need to do this course. So I kind of like, I moved over to America and I did a little bit more of social media while I was waiting for my work permit, but nothing ever really materialized. So I was kind of like, you know, I've had multiple opportunities where this could have gone somewhere and it didn't. And I feel like the universe is telling me like, you need to go fully into teaching. And I still made videos on the side. I did it where I would just send them to my like group chats, my like department, things like that. And then I remember my first teaching job, I used to always like film mini videos, mini TikToks, and just send them in the chat. And then lockdown happened in 2020. And my head of department was like, you need to make these public. Like these are hilarious. Like I think your kids would love seeing these. So he was like, the whole department should do it. So the whole department did. And then it was like, I suddenly had the idea for a series to do like British to American translations. Part 1 got like 5,000 views. And at that point I was on like 100 views a day max. And I was like, okay, this is something. And then part 2 got like 300,000 views. And I was like, oh my God, like what is this? And then ever since then, like, because I kind of got that like, okay from the universe, I just continued to make content. I started doing from the British to American translations. I then did like classroom content when I was still teaching. I then started to do Disney content when I started to find little things for like, my Disney themed classroom. And then I started to progress and be like, right, long term, if I want to do this like full time, I need to work out how can I do things that aren't specific to my profession anymore. So then I started to do more like comparisons outside of the classroom between England and America. And now I just post whatever I want. I do like costume videos. I do like random things I find. And yeah, I just love what I do. So I get to do it full time, luckily.
That's so awesome. I feel like it sums up every facet of you in your videos. I totally understand the social media, like holding back. I think we're kind of at the age where Like, because we were at Disney when social media started coming out, and sometimes we felt that way too, like kind of having to hold back a little bit. But I'm so glad you were able to push through, and they were so encouraging that you started to post the videos. Like, that's the green light right there.
Yeah. And I love that you see social media as a positive thing. I think so often I see stuff about what a negative space it is. And I really think that social media is a great tool, and it can be such a positive component, and it can make you laugh and, you know, bring you out of a dark time. Like the lockdown, everyone was having so much fun, just like scrolling on Instagram and TikTok. And I think that it really is what you make it. So it's so encouraging to hear the story of someone who made it a really positive thing and turned it into something you can now build your life around. That's so cool. So we wanted to get into a lot of the England versus America, the differences that you talk about so much on your social media. So what were for you some of the biggest culture shocks that you experienced when you moved to the States?
I remember one of the first things, and I remember being at like summer camp, and like they would greet us by being like, "Hi, friends." And I'm used to, like, in England, everyone being like really to the point. Like if someone called you friends, like in England, you'd think like, oh my gosh, like this is part of a cult. Like you would not want to like. So when I first came and everyone was so positive, I was like, oh my gosh. I think it's so pushed in America to like have a dream and to work hard and achieve your dream. And that really, for me, like I remember all those years ago, like when I first came to America, just being like, okay, this is a very different way of life, of like people really pushing you to do whatever it is you want to do. Whereas like in England, like it was very much you go to school, you go to university, you get into a job, and you know, you just get by, you try and pay rent somewhere. If you're lucky enough to get on the property ladder, you do. But it's very much that mentality of the summer's coming, we're going to go on a summer holiday, and building your whole life around like that one holiday you have a year. And I remember just constantly questioning that and being in England and thinking like, I don't know if I want to stay here for the rest of my life, where that's what it is. You go into like the machine of a full-time job and that's it. So when I started to do summer camp for the first time, like I went to a camp at like 20 years old, and I was told the program that I did it with, that there was going to be a lot of other British people there and you do all this traveling together. I went to this camp. I was the only British person there. Like,
oh my God,
completely out of my depth. I have 3 older siblings and then like a baby sister as well. But like I was always the baby of the family, and everyone was like, you're going out on your own to America for 4 months? Like, are you insane? But I really feel like what I loved so much about America was like, that was my first stepping stone into me like actively being an adult, and like no longer being the baby of the family, and being like, I'm doing this on my own. And I don't care if people say like, oh, that's a difficult path to go down. I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And then luckily every step along the way kind of like led me to where I am now.
Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing.
Did you meet your wife during that initial time or like a little bit later?
So our like whole story of how we met, I'm very much like, I believe like everything happens for a reason. So basically, because in England, how it is you have your high school, and then you have like college, then university. So your last 2 years of high school are like sixth form or A levels. So I remember when I transitioned from school to college, I wanted to drop out. I didn't like it. It was like you go to a different like location where you lose all of your school friends. And I was like, I'm really like out of my comfort zone. And then I made really good friends with someone that reminded me so much of my sister. And we stayed friends. And then I went to university. I was on Twitter one day and they literally did a tweet saying, I'm going to America this summer. So I messaged them being like, what's that about? They told me about the camp program they were doing. I got placed. They didn't after I applied. And they were like, I'm so grateful that you got placed. Ended up in this random camp in Indiana, became best friends with the aquatics director who was from Alabama. And they were like, one day I'm going to be a director of a camp and I'm going to hire you as a director. And I was like, yeah, that's going to happen. The next year I went back to that camp. That director went to Arizona, where they became a director there of a camp. I then finished university and was like, I can't do camp anymore. Like I've aged out. Landed a job on a cruise ship. The cruise ship ended literally with 2 weeks for me to get my visa to go back and do summer camp. So yes, I got the job as a director at that camp in Arizona from that connection 2 years prior. And it just so happened that my now wife was one of the other directors that walked through that door and I met at that random camp.
That is so wild. I love how everything is interwoven together.
Yeah, it's like, and that's the thing. I remember when I first like went to camp in Indiana, I looked into it. I was like, how could I move to America? And like all of the things say, like, unless you get married, you really can't. Like, unless you're like a celebrity or something. And I was always like, that's fine. Like, I had plans to go travel Australia after I did summer camp that summer. And then we started a relationship, and I was like, right, I've got to like think, how can I manage this long term? And then that's what pushed me into teaching. And it's like me meeting her, being pushed into teaching is what pushed me back into social media. Like, it's so strange how it all like just works out.
Yeah, it connected like to what your younger self loved, and then all the pieces fell into place. Oh, I love stories like that. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, that's so wild. So we've kind of gone through the wild ride that led you to where you are today, but what actually caused you to decide to take the leap to full-time content creation as opposed to just doing it on the side as kind of a fun thing? Do you have a specific creative process and routine for creating your videos now that you're full-time, or does it kind of flow similarly to the way it did beforehand?
So I'd say my main thing was I had like a list of things that were if you achieve this, you can go full time. And my main thing was I need to make sure that I'm at least matching my current salary. And then I remember I told myself, no matter what, at the end of this school year, I'm going full time. I'm going to go for it. I need to just pursue this to see where it can go. And then I had like, oh crap, I can't do this moment, like back in October. And I was like, I'm not earning enough money to do this. I can't do this. And then I got monetized on Instagram Reels bonuses, which like was an additional income to my TikTok creator fund. And then the next month, my YouTube randomly blew up. I was on like 18,000 subscribers. I'm now on 380,000 in the span of, that's November to March, which is just insane to even think about.
Yeah.
And then with that, I was looking at it, and I remember thinking, like, I remember all those years ago being like, if I ever got to like 100,000 on YouTube, like I would be so proud. I would do everything I could. And I remember like doing my full-time job being like, I just want to be able to do a long form video, but I have no time. Like I'm juggling everything. And then I was also looking at like the money I was getting, was like, I'm matching my salary. Like this is what I said I needed to do. And then I got another offer to go and do like with a bunch of other teacher content creators to do like an animated series where we did like voiceover work, which has now been scrapped, but it's fine.
Oh no.
Where basically I would have to fly to Atlanta to record things. And I remember I was speaking to my wife about it. And the whole time of me saying, I just want to go full time, my wife was always like, but you need to see how much you're earning, because this could just be a couple of good months. You could completely like have a low month and then you've given up your job and like, what are you going to do? So I was like, yep, you're right. And then she turned around to me after all of that and was like, you need to quit. Like, I'm telling you right now, you need to quit. And that's for me, the fact that she, after all that time of being like, we need to be adults about this, saying that, I was like, okay, like I'm going to do this. And yeah, I quit. And since then, like all of these other opportunities have come up. I'm now on like a teacher comedy tour where I just did like some sets in Florida. I'd never done stand-up before, but I loved it. And now I get to go to like the Northeast coast in a couple of weeks to continue it. And then they want to do like summer, they want to do like Australia, they want to do international. I'm like, it's insane. So I'm glad that I made that jump.
Do you like being on stage? Like, how did it feel for your first time?
The first time I was like crapping my pants. My set was, I only had to do a 5-minute set. It's an ensemble group of teachers. And we have some that are like veteran comedians that like can do a 45+ minute set. Right. So I was only told to aim for 5 to 10 minutes. And my first night I did 4.5 and I was like shaking. I was like, I can't do this. And then each night I just progressed, went through it, loosened up. And by the last night I got to like a 20-minute set. I feel like it's also influencing my content with the whole like just being true to who you are. Like when you're on stage, there's no like going back and refilming yourself. There's no comparison of, oh, but this video, that video. It's just you being authentically yourself and trying to relate to people. It's really started to make me like re-look at my own content and being like, I love doing skits, but does that every video have to be a skit? Can I just do videos where it's just me talking about my day? Right. And I'm like, I'm liking that transition because it eases the workload on myself, but it also helps me like connect more with my audience as well.
Yeah. I do love the authenticity of just like, you can't really plan for everything, it's live. You just gotta, like, if you fall down, you gotta pick yourself back up. If you stumble, you have to keep going. And I think that's the best way to learn a new skill, is just to get in there and do it and pick up the pieces later, or learn from mistakes as you go. And I think we are, like, as a collective, getting to that place with content too. Social media, I think, is like screaming for more authenticity, and people just kind of showing up as they are. And people are really craving like more insight into the person, because they get to know so much of your sense of humor and so much of you. They want to know more. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love how all of that, everything that you said along the way, it was like, oh, well, I need to hit this mark. I need to hit this mark and this. And it was like the universe is like, bing, 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 like every door open. And now you're just like on stage and going around and like, hey, you might even circle back to Australia, which was in your plans from.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so strange. I was like, okay.
Crazy. Oh my gosh. It's just like, you can see how the universe is working, and like, oh my God, I'm so thrilled to see how it continues to go. But right now is a really sweet spot too. So we would love to know too, what is your best advice that you can give any up and coming creators in the social media space nowadays?
I think my main thing is, I've done it every now and then where I'll integrate trends into what I do. But I think for me, I try my best to just be myself and just stay in my own lane with what I do. I feel like the more that you can just be like, this is me, this is the content, this is my aim with my content, the more that you do that, the easier it is. I think when you're trying to be someone else, or you're trying to just, use all of the like quick hacks you can, where you're like, this sound is trending and I had one viral video on this trending sound, now I've got to do 16 to the same thing. I think people concern themselves so much with just going viral all the time. And I think it's more important to just be like, you don't need to necessarily go viral. You just need to remain consistent with what you're doing. I look at it like last year, there was a point where I was doing just teacher content. And there was like a month where I grew like hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. And it got to the end of the school year, and it was at my highest, where every single video on TikTok was 100,000 plus every single day, because people were obsessed with the teacher content I was making. And then summer came and I was like, I don't want to be going into my classroom filming. I don't want to be doing teacher videos when I'm on break, when students are on break, when everyone's on break. And I started trialing out non-teacher content for the first time, and my views took a massive dip, and my following went from just an upwards trajectory to suddenly, like, for the first time ever, there were days where I would lose followers, where I would go down 100 here or there. And I think for me, like, that was a humbling experience, where I was like, just because you have X amount of followers doesn't mean that anything's guaranteed. You still need to work every day. And even though I had that low for that 2-month period, now because of that, it's now paid off long term, where now I'm not just bound to doing one type of content, because I took that risk. And now I'm able to just do any content that I want. Because I remember doing it where Adele would release a new song, and I'd be like, when Adele releases a new song, and trying to do a classroom skit around it and being like, this doesn't work, because I'm trying to smash it into my niche, when really I just need to do a reaction video to the new song. And I think that is such a large part of it. You become so engrossed with what goes well, that you don't allow yourself that freedom to experiment, because you just feel like, oh, but if I have bad views this day, that I'm a failure. But I think a large part of it is just accepting that in order to remain consistent and to have longevity in it, you need to constantly be challenging yourself and having it so you're giving your viewers a new experience, and also allowing new viewers to find you as well.
Right.
Yeah, because I feel like I've gotten to that portion of TikTok that gets a little obsessive sometimes about the strategy and do this to get these views and XYZ. And I'm like, this just feels really almost like a desperate kind of energy to grow. And I'm like, but the creators that I love and I know, it's like, I know what they like their main thing, but then I know they have a dog and it's like, you know more about them, you know, their favorite food or something like,
Yeah.
and those are the real things. And I think that's the type of creators that you just love because you feel like you know them and they're like your friends because they're just being themselves and you're just all hanging out in the social space. So I love that approach.
My biggest advice I give to anyone is I will say, like, pure and simple, like, I am a social media addict. I love social media. So I base what I do on what I do and don't like. If I go on like Instagram and someone does 50 stories and I'm there clicking for ages, I mute them because I'm like, this is insane. I don't care enough. So it's like, I don't do the same thing. Like, if I see something that annoys me as a person, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, and I think that's where loads of people like forget that sometimes it's as simple as just being like, I'm a person, what do I want to hear or see today when I go online? And then making that your content. That's the easiest way to engage with people.
Absolutely. Like, you know better than some imaginary audience. That's good. That's good advice.
Some social media golden rule, like be the social media you want to see in the world.
That's what I'm like though. Like, I think, and it's so strange because I see it more on like Instagram stories where I've started doing it where I'll just do like mini tidbits behind the scenes of me like doing my videos. And I've had people reach out to me being like, can you make this into a reel? Like, I want to be able to watch this all the time. And it's like, okay, so you want this instead of the video that's 30 seconds long that took me 2 hours and 16 costume changes to do. Like,
right. Well, as a consumer, I also want to say I do love your stories like that because I'm just like, oh, it's just like we're all hanging out. Like, what's going on? And I love those. Like, that's how you really get to know the person behind the screen. So those are great.
We're like so curious about, I just think as a collective, we're so curious about people's lives, right? Like our friends, the people close to us, but the content creators who, like Jess said, feel like friends because we feel like we know them. And then the more we get to know them, the more we want to know them. And it's like this cycle of, I don't know, I feel kind of nosy, but I'm like, oh, what are you eating for breakfast today? Like, why do I care? But I do.
Humans are inherently curious, I think.
When that's the, it's like, even at the moment, I have my citizenship exam in like 2 weeks. And like, I was thinking about it and I was like, why don't I just integrate this into my content? And like, I did one today where it's like trying to memorize like We the People, because that's one of the questions. And like, that's having a good reaction of people being like, oh, like, I didn't even know what this is. And I'm an American. I didn't know the first 3 words of the Constitution. And then it's like, I filmed another one tomorrow where it's like a speed round and I've like added like mini like ad libs here and there. And I'm just like, it's helping me do what I need to do and study for my like US citizenship exam, but it engages with my audience, the British audience that are like, oh, I want to learn more about America, and my American audience being like, I didn't know this, or just like, oh, it's so refreshing to see someone like actively learning this as well.
Those are really funny. So
also proof that immigrants probably know more about America than people who were born here, because
true.
I could not recite the Constitution to you at all.
You'll probably teach us a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I'm excited to relearn that. When you're producing new and creative content all the time, I imagine that there are some moments where you feel a little burnt out or you feel that pressure. So what in those moments kind of helps you to stay authentic and to, you know, maintain like, I'm just going to be myself no matter what that looks like?
So I will usually do it. I always have drafts on hand so that if I am ever like traveling, if I have a bad day, anything like that, I have things ready to go. I always say like, it's a good thing that I was a teacher before this, because teachers are so self-critical and they're constantly evaluating and trying to like better their craft. And I feel like that's what I'm like with my like social media. Whenever I have like, I have it right now, I have 10 ideas off the top of my head that I'm dying to do, that I've just not had time, that I'm like, right, that one. My mind is always going around with it. Like, I have, I think like 300 different concepts already mapped out on my phone, ready to go whenever I want to. But for me, like, I always do it where if I'm in a bad mood, I won't film. Like, I refuse to like watch it back and be like, I remember this day, like I was pissed off because my dog like pooped on the floor or something like that. Like, it goes with that authenticity piece. If you are having a day where it's like that, you don't want to ever appear fake and you don't want to look back at it. And like, to me, I'm like, I never want a video to go viral that I'm not proud of. So that's where that comes into play. And then I think a lot of the time, whenever I'm having like a moment where I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to do, I usually just look for things around me that inspire me, because I had it where there was a day where like my views were low and I was like, maybe I should just take a break from this. Like this was like back in like that October where I was like, I don't know, I'm at a crossroads where I don't know what to do. And then I had like these Maleficent horns come in the mail that day. And I remember just seeing them and just like laughing hysterically and like putting them on and just like filming like an ad-lib video of it and FaceTiming all my friends and just laughing about it. And I think a lot of the time, like the videos that I love the most are the ones where I'm like, I'm so excited about something that this is what I would FaceTime all my friends to show and share. And instead I video it and put it online. That's always what like inspires me whenever I'm having a low point. I usually look for something like, because I have a backlog of like Disney stuff, especially, that I'm like, I need to integrate that into a video, and then I forget about it, and then I find it 3 weeks later, and I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, reaction videos are always so genuine and like joyful.
That made me think of, there was a video you did with an Ursula wig.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, so funny.
The gravity was really having its way with that Ursula wig, and I was cracking up at that, and I was like, this is hysterical. Like it's not polished, but that's what makes it funny, because we're all just laughing it out. And then you think of like Ursula, the character, and you're like, I wonder what she would use to keep her hair like so elevated all the time.
So true. Can I ask you this while we have you? Because I'm always just curious what bigger creators do, but do you edit your videos in TikTok or outside of TikTok? Nobody has a straight answer for this.
I am a creature of habit. I'm like, change terrifies me. So TikTok, like that is my filming editing software. I only know how to edit on TikTok. I've tried to film and edit on Reels. I don't understand it. I've not even tried to use YouTube Shorts to edit anything. Whenever I edit a YouTube video, it's always like the iMovie thing that comes with the desktop. I like to try and keep things as simple as possible, because I don't know what I'm doing with technology. Right. So yeah, that's basically what I do. What I always say is like, I love TikTok. It's where I got my start, but TikTok is, out of all of the platforms, it's the most erratic when it comes to consistency with views. If that's the main way you're tracking whether a video does well or not, it's going to be difficult. So like, I always say to people, like, be present elsewhere, because I've had lots of opportunities reach out to me. Like, I'm on like, I think 1.2 million on TikTok and like 300 and something thousand on Instagram. But I've had more opportunities come from Instagram than I have TikTok, even with like 4 times more followers there. And then same thing now that I've got YouTube as well on a similar following to my Instagram. It's like, to me, I can upload a video. If it doesn't do well on TikTok, I can be like, okay, let me see on these other 2 apps. And I can have it where I'm like, it didn't do well on TikTok. It could be a trend. It could just be a bad video. But then I see it do well on other platforms. And I'd say like, a lot of it is just do the video on TikTok, screen record it, make sure you haven't got like the logo on it, and share it elsewhere. Because you never know, just because one audience doesn't like it doesn't mean that other audiences won't.
Right. That's really good advice.
All of my growth came from YouTube Shorts on YouTube. It was literally, great. I would upload them. Like I tried it like 1 or 2 a week. They would maybe get like 1,000 views. And I had like 16 or something thousand subscribers. So I was like, it's doing okay, but it's not enough for me to like add another step to my day when I was still working my full-time job.
Right.
And then in November, I uploaded one of my British versus American school videos, and it hit like 7 million views on YouTube Shorts.
Wow.
And then every other short since then has done well. And now I get an additional monetization from the YouTube Short Fund on top of everything else. So like, I always say to people, like, for me, when it comes to content creation, you're better off being in a position where your monetization is enough to support you. Because if you rely too much on brand deals, if you're there being like, I got paid X amount of dollars to promote this product that I don't even use, it's going to cause a disconnect with your audience.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed that too. Anyways, well, I guess that's a great time to transition into our next topic, which is a little bit off the content creation side, but maybe still related. But we wanted to ask you about your connection to Disney, since that connects all 3 of us. We know that you're a huge fan. So how did your love for Disney develop originally? And now how does it play a role in your present day life?
So I always say, it sounds really sad, but like when I was young, like I had no friends. I was really shy. Like my mum to this day, when I'm doing stand-up comedy in front of like hundreds of people, she's like, okay, like she's like, it's so strange to me to think, like, I remember when you would like literally go to like a family event and sit in a corner and not speak to anyone. So that's basically what it was. I was very like shy as a child. I didn't have many friends. Like I was bullied in school. And I remember like always watching Disney films and always seeing like these outcasts and seeing people like Ariel that like lived under the ocean but wanted to be part of a different world, and like just seeing like all these stories about how people like overcome things and like always thinking like things can always get better. And that for me from a young age really just kind of gave me an escape from like my childhood of being like, this isn't the best, but hopefully it will get better. So yeah, I definitely already had that quite early on, always loved Disney. And then my followers made me like take the jump from like loving Disney to being obsessed with it because I had it where like one of my first series where it was like, rather than me doing skits, was just me like doing me, was when I started collecting these like Disney music money boxes, where I would like found one in a thrift store. It was in like my classroom tour and people were like, wow, what's that? And then I found a Rapunzel one and I was like, what, they have more of these? And then all of my followers were like, get the whole set, get the whole set. So then it became a thing where I would like go out, find them, like put it in. And the series did really well. Like it's on IGTV and it's on like, I think it's over 1 million views of people just watching it, engaging with it. And then I also did another one when McDonald's did their 50th anniversary, 50 toys, did another like collection of going out, getting them all. And I think it just really like made me embrace it. And with content creation, where it is a business where you earn money from it, you also have business expenses. So I was like, well, I love Disney and Disney's a part of my content. So I'm like, okay, like I can lean into this because this is a business expense now. So yep. It's using that and being like, okay, like I love this. It's part of my content. It connects to my audience. Like as a business, if I want to buy myself and my wife like annual passes so that she can film me and like we can do things in the parks as well, like what a blessing to be able to be like, oh, like it's not me treating myself, it's a business expense. Yeah, it definitely has led me down the path of an obsession, but I love it. I think it's so fun to integrate with my content. It's also really liberating when like I did it where I did like an Elsa dress where I was just like, this is on sale, let me just do it. Like it wasn't like to make a political statement or anything like that. And I remember I had like a parent reach out to me and say like, I'm so grateful that you posted that video of you wearing that dress, because I have a 5-year-old son that used to dress up as Elsa and he stopped because he was worried that people would think that he's weird or that he's not allowed to wear it. But I've shown him your video and now he's like, I can dress up as Elsa again, because he sees like a man that's married is an adult that just dresses up as Elsa and it's not a big deal. And I think that's what I love, the fact that without even meaning to, like there are people that are worried about being labeled like a Disney adult, but they like see me and they're like, you love Disney, but like that's not your whole personality. And like we can also just enjoy it. Like you're passionate about something and you just integrate it into your life. And that's the main thing. That's why I just love Disney.
That resonates so much with us because I think we both separately and together definitely for a long time, you know, people associated us and our content with Disney exclusively. And we love Disney. But as we've gotten older, we're like, hey, we have more to say. Like there's more to talk about. There's more to our lives. And, you know, getting labeled as a Disney adult is certainly a label I'm fine with owning, but we were excited to branch out into other things as well. I love that was something that just developed so organically. Yeah.
And now I'm like, I get to do my costumes and it's great. Like the company I get all my costumes from reached out to me and they're like, we loved your Ursula video. Like, here's like a few $100. Treat yourself to some more costumes. So now I have like all of these ideas because I did like an If Encanto was set in England that did really well.
I love that one.
Like, it's one of my faves. Like I get people commenting on my videos still being like, oh no, the casita. Like But yeah, I'm like definitely leaning into it. I've got like a whole series planned of like if Toy Story were British, because of like Lightyear coming out this summer. I have like all of the Beauty and the Beast costumes, so I'm going to do like a British Beauty and the Beast series.
This is brilliant.
Yeah, it's so fun to just like work it into my content.
There's just so much in Disney and everybody knows it, and taking the spin on like doing the British side of it, or, you know, whatever resonates with you, is just so, it's funny and it's relatable, and I'm very excited for these videos.
Oh my
God, I love it.
That's brilliant. Particularly excited for the Beauty and the Beast content. But yeah, you're right. It's such a universal thing that like everybody knows who these characters are to some degree, whether you can like quote the movie backwards and forwards, or if you've just, you know, seen it once and recognize the characters. So that's just such a fun way to connect people. And I feel like everyone's getting like an exclusive sneak peek into your upcoming content. So thrilled about that. So kind of zooming out a bit and getting into some overarching things. I just love your outlook and your just willingness to embrace things as they come. But what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned that has really helped you to get to this point, and that you foresee helping you, you know, along the way as you kind of step into this new season of life?
A lot of the time, I think people like they get into social media, they get to X amount of followers, or they get verified on a platform. And I think people start to feel like, because they've got to a certain point, they're owed things, where you get creators that are constantly like saying, I've been shadow banned, my views are down. When you look at it and you're like, it's because you've stopped trying. Like, you think you believe your own hype and you're no longer like humble and down to earth. And I think with me, like, my main thing is, I think it's important to always try new things. I tried that animation back in January, thought like, I don't even know what this is. And at first, the company that reached out to me, they reached out to me on a separate Instagram that was like their shirt Instagram. And I was like, they just want to meet with me to sell shirts. I don't want to sell shirts. But I was like, no, I'm going to take the time, meet with them, because you never know where this is going to go. They then offered me to do the animation. That animation is what connected me to those other creators that were on it. Through those creators, one of them was associated with Bored Teachers, who I'm doing the tour with. And the manager was like, do you know anyone that you think would be funny for stand-up? She referred me through that one interaction. Whereas if I, back in November, was like, I'm not responding to a message by this t-shirt company, that would have never happened. So I think it's so important to be like, you're still a person. You never know where things are going to go. There is never an offer on the table that is too small for you. If you believe at any point, like, oh, I'm not doing this, even though I like this person or I like this brand, I'm not doing this because I'm worth more than that. I feel like once you get to that point, that's where you get the disconnect. My first ever brand deal I got like an Amazon gift card for doing a photo on Instagram back when I had 1,000 followers. And I was buzzing because I was like, I'm going to get myself some like British chocolate with this gift card. Like, this is the best thing of the world. Like, was so proud. And then flash forward a year later, that same company reached out to me and was like, oh, Clorox reached out to us. They want us to find someone to do a brand deal. They offered it to me. I did a brand deal with Clorox through them. And then after that, they were like, we love who you are, your communication, your content. They offered me a brand deal, which to this day is the most I've ever been paid for a brand deal, because back then, a year ago, I wasn't too much like, oh, this one thing's never going to amount to anything. I think it's so important to just be kind to people and to put yourself out there and just never like be rude about anything. Even if you get offered something and you're not happy with what it is, say like, right now this doesn't suit me, but I would be more than willing to discuss things in the future, because it's a smaller community than you know, and people do talk. So the more that you can just present yourself as being like, this is who I am, this is what I represent, then that's all you can put out there. And I think that will pay off in the end as well.
I feel like that's not advice that you hear a lot. It's almost like countered. It's because it's not that you're not knowing your worth. It's that you're saying like, I want to be someone who, part of my authenticity is that I am also trying to pay it forward and help other people out too. And not like think that I'm too big to be an active participant in this community, and make it feel more like a community and not like this big untouchable space. Because I think so many people look at what you do for a living and go like, oh, I could never do that.
Yeah.
But you've really taken these steps to make it as simple as just showing up, being yourself, being consistent, and saying yes to things and people, and cultivating positive relationships.
Yeah, it's like taking things off the pedestal and just getting level ground and connecting with people just on a human level. And that's all people want. And that's what really feels so genuine. On that note, so just to wrap up the main questions we have for you, we all know that there's always more to a person than just what you see in the public eye when they're sharing and creating things. So what are 3 things that you would love people to know about you that encapsulate your true self that they may not notice immediately through your content?
I think, and this is one thing that like being on tour made me realize. In real life, I cuss all the time, but like obviously I was a teacher creator, and if I was cussing, like I would have been fired. And like when I'm on tour, I remember the first night of tour, I was like, I can't cuss. But then it's like a 21 plus event where you have to be over 21. People are drinking because it's usually in like bars. And I was like, well, why can't I? Sorry, my dog is like, having an episode. So yeah, I remember just being like, okay, the first night I didn't cuss, I was like, right, I've got to be very much like, it needs to be just like this and perfect. And then it was on the second night where I was like, you know what, like these are a bunch of like people that have gone to a bar, that are with their friends hanging out. Let's just go for it. Went for it, like cussed a little bit, and people loved it. Like the reaction was just overwhelming. And then I was like, okay then. So like even like last week, I started doing a couple of videos where it's like cussing in British versus American schools, where I was like, am I allowed to do this? Yeah. And they did really well. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm allowed to cuss now. Like I'm not employed by anyone. Like,
yeah,
freedom.
I think that's the main thing, is I'm trying to just do my best to show as much more of my personality as I can. I don't want to ever be at that point where every single video is me cussing every single thing, because people will be like, I have kids that watch you, man. Can you calm it down a little bit? But I think that's definitely one thing. I think in the future, I definitely want to integrate my wife into some more of my content. I did it early on in TikTok where I did a couple of videos with her, and there was just some really narrow-minded, rude comments of people being like, you're too flamboyant to have a wife, and just like things like that. So I think like I'm definitely in a position now where I'm like, no, my wife's going to be in my videos, deal with her. That I'm excited about doing. And I just think, apart from that, it's just, I just want people to know that I'm a person. Like, I'm here. Like, I feel like so many people are like, oh, you've got X amount of followers, like, you're unapproachable. And like, I get DMs of being like, I saw you here, but I didn't come up to you. I'm like, it's fine. Like, I don't mind. I'm awkward in person as well. Like, say hello, it's fine.
What you see online is what you get.
Yeah.
And comments to like, they go to a human being. And I think it's so important to just realize like you're speaking to someone. You're not just speaking into a void. I love that. Humanizing.
See, I did see your video of swearing in American schools versus British schools. And though I have never attended a British school, I think the American assessment was spot on.
Well, that's the thing. I did it being like, I'm going to do one, and this is the thing as well with engaging with your community. Like, that's why I love Instagram, because you can do polls and things. And I remember just as I was getting towards leaving my teaching job, I did a poll where I was like, I've seen a couple of comments asking about cussing. Like when I first started TikTok 2 years ago, and I did British to American translations, one of the top asked one was cussing in England versus America. And I was like, I can't do that. And then I did a poll recently where I was like, how do people feel about me integrating cussing into a couple of my videos? And it was like 95% said yes, like cuss away. And I was like, are you sure?
Wow.
And I did stories being like, just so you're aware, today's video, like last week, has some cussing in it. It's called Cussing in a British versus American School. So I think it's a bit obvious that there's going to be cussing in there. And I had so many people reach out to me being like, oh, bless you. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, seriously, do whatever you want. And I'm just like, I think it's so liberating to just know, like, you put more pressure on yourself than you necessarily need to at times.
Yeah, that's so true.
Well, especially when you have like people telling you like not to have social media. And then it's like, okay, well, if I have social media, I need it to be appropriate. And it's like trying to please everyone in all these boxes. And then now you just have freedom to just be. And it's like, whoa, like culture shock almost, like, oh, I can just exist and say what I want and, you know, within reason. But it's liberating. And you know, those videos are funny and clearly people like them. So
yeah, I know, like people have been like, can you do more? So I'm like, it's gone from me being like, I'll do one video, this is all I'm comfortable with, to now I'm like planning out like a 5-part series around it, because people are just like, no, we need more, like, can you please do this word, that word, like, and I'm like, okay.
Yep, it's gonna snowball.
Yeah.
I bet your kids are so excited for you.
I think like this is the thing, I don't know who's like looking after me up there, but like I remember like having so much guilt because I had to like quit midway through the year. So I went back to my old school because they were doing some like math festival kind of thing. And one of my like students from my first year teaching, which was the first class where I first started that TikTok to try and like communicate with them while they were out of school in lockdown, he was like, I see you like all the time and I'm so proud of everything that you're doing. And then I was like, okay, like I've quit, like what do you think about that? And then he was like, I'm just proud of you, like the fact that you started this TikTok and you put yourself out there, like you could have easily been like, you know, had trolls and stuff, you like put yourself out there to try and connect with your kids. And they were like, I'm just grateful at the fact that like I gotta have you as a teacher, like you're an amazing teacher, but like this is what you're meant to do, like, and you need to pursue this, because I can see every time I watch your video, like, this is your dream. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's so, like, mature of a student to say.
That really is.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so sweet. That just, like, that makes you know, like, okay, I'm on the right path. And, I mean, but teaching was part of your path to get you to here. So it's all connected.
Yeah. And I always say, like, long term, I think I'll try and, like, go back to school, get a master's, and like eventually go into like doing like being a college professor in like social media management and like
cool.
People like grow with it.
Yeah, that would be a really cool idea. Well, by the time like that happens too, I'm sure the degree programs for social media are going to exist a lot more. Because I feel like when I was in college, like I was always interested in social media, but it was like communications and like very basic. Like nobody had any studies on it yet because it was so new. And now people are starting to, but I'm sure within the next few years, it's going to be like a huge thing.
Yeah, so we'll see. But I don't know. I'm just going with the flow. I'm just like, we'll see.
Oh my God. Enjoy the ride. Like, I love watching everything you post. I like am always cheering you on. I'm like, yay. Cause I know, like I can tell it's your dream. So I love seeing people achieve their dreams. And it's like the best thing.
Well, Jess, I think it's rapid fire time.
It's time for rapid fires. So Vinny, at the end of all of our ReDIScover interviews, we have rapid fire questions. So we have some specifically for you. And then we also have some that we ask all of our ReDIScover guests so we can see what everybody's answers are.
Okay. First rapid fire. Favorite thing about England?
Food.
Oh, really?
What specifically?
To this day, my one like thing that I treat myself with is I buy myself a crate of roast chicken Walker's crisps, which are like Lay's but roast chicken flavored, and Galaxy chocolate, which is like Dove but a nicer version of Dove. Every month without fail, I get those two things. They're like my one, like, this is your treat.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
So I'm here now and I'm exploring the cuisine as well, but I've loved Cadbury bars. I like the one with like the popping
I love the Marvelous Creations one.
Yes.
I love that.
I was going to ask, like, do you think that's the best Cadbury bar or is there another one I should try?
I think for me, that is like one that I go for. I love Galaxy. If you haven't tried Galaxy, try Galaxy Caramel. I think it's better than Caramello bars.
Okay, I'll go get one. I bet it's at the store down the street. All right. So adversely, what is your favorite thing about America?
Oh my God, this is hard. Why is this one hard? I would say definitely the opportunities. I think in America, there are a lot more ways that you can like monetize and make money when it comes to like pursuing your passions. I think there's definitely a lot more room in terms of like growth with that.
That's a good answer. That makes me feel optimistic.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite video you've ever made?
I would say I have about 6. It's like choosing my children.
List them all.
I'd say my British Encanto one is like hands down one of my favorites. I think the video where I have those Maleficent horns and it's literally me being like, look what came. And there's one point where I'm like, to the window, to the wall. Like, I love that one so much because that for me is my like, that was the turning point of me being like, I can just be me. And then I definitely say, what's my favorite? I'd have to say like winter in British schools versus American schools is up there as one of my favorites because that's the one that catapulted me on YouTube Shorts.
Oh my God.
Oh, okay.
I know. I do have to say I miss Johnny a little bit, but
I miss him too. And I've had a few people be like, how can you integrate him? And I'm like, well, I can't really do like a classroom skit anymore because I'm not in it. But yeah. I am, because my life as an English teacher series, I think it's on part 35. My plan is, sneak peek, is like to add 5 more to it, get to part 40. And then I want to start remastering it and putting it out on my YouTube Shorts because the first 15 of them have like really obnoxious background noise and were filmed like 3 iPhones ago. So the quality is like distorted as well. So I definitely want to like do that soon as well. So he will make a reappearance in some form.
He will be around forever in some capacity. Okay. Next, who's your favorite Disney character?
I'd say off the top of my head, Simba.
Aww.
What's the story? Is it just like
I just love the Lion King. I don't know what I'm obsessed with the Lion King. So yeah, I'd say like Simba's the first one off the top of my head. I'd also say in terms of villains, I love Ursula and Maleficent as my top 2 Disney villains.
They're the most like ostentatious, just over the top. Like everything is big.
It's because they're my 2 like main costume videos that have done really well as well. So I'm like, okay, then I've got an affinity for you. Like, okay.
Yeah,
exactly. You kind of just embody them. So no.
Favorite piece of Disney merch that you own?
I'd say it's hard. I'd probably say my Peter Pan Neverland Spirit jersey.
Oh,
I was after that for like 3 years, and they go for like $500. It's insane how much they sell for.
Oh my God! Did you have to get it on eBay?
I haggled with someone on eBay. It cost me like $100, but I was like, you know what? This goes for 400, and that was my I quit my job treat.
Yeah.
I mean that's the one with like stars and stuff on it, right? Like,
yeah, it's like. Because I only really got into spirit jerseys after I moved to America. We went to Disneyland for our honeymoon and I saw them. I was like, they're really nice. Like, what are they? And then like, I started to look into them and I was like, that's a really nice one. But it like sold like a year before. And I was just like, I always wanted it, but it was always like ridiculously overpriced.
Mm-hmm. Everyone always has a Disney spirit jersey phase. Like you get really into them.
They're really comfy.
I've got like 20 of them at this point.
They are really comfy. All right, so now our ReDIScover rapid fires. So Vinny, what does living authentically mean to you?
I think it just means, one, being grateful for any opportunity that you get, but also just being real with the highs and lows and never believing that you, due to any following whatsoever, are worth more than another person or another creator.
If you could travel to one place anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and why?
I have 2. I would say Australia is definitely the number 1, just because I've always wanted to go to Australia.
It's happening.
Yeah,
we've seen it in the stars of your story.
If the tour doesn't go there, I've already said I have like, it's weird. My demographic is like England, America, Australia, Canada. So Australia and Canada are 2 like places on my bucket list. And I'm like, I've had a lot of requests to do like America versus Australia videos, but I'm like, I've never been, so how can I do that authentically?
Yeah,
right.
So I've already said to my wife, I'm like, that's a business trip. I need to go there to do research.
Yeah, it sounds like a research trip to me.
And then the other one is New York. Like I literally just did a story time yesterday about how when I first came to America, I thought I went to New York, but it was Newark. And it was Jersey.
Well, those are 2 very different places.
So yeah, we're
classic.
Our tour goes there next month. We're going to the Pavilion, which is like 1,500 seats, which is the biggest venue we've had. But luckily, one of my friends, Sharon, from my old school, has a house in Philadelphia. So I'm going to like, because that's the first day on the tour, I'm going to fly out 2 days earlier with my wife and get a train up to New York so we can see it instead of being like on tour there. Because I'm like, it would suck for my first time seeing it to be like, I'm on tour, so I get to drive past everything and then go to a venue and work all day.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Oh my
love
gosh,
it.
that's so
New York is like, it's grand. Like everything is big and
I'm
it's
so
busy,
excited.
and you're just gonna be like overstimulated in the best way.
Yeah.
in the best way. That's the best way to describe it. Yes.
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm
Oh,
excited for you.
you're gonna eat so much good food.
Yeah,
I
the
know,
food is
I
really
know.
good. Okay. What is one thing that you would be doing every day if your life were free of limitations?
I'd say what I'm doing now. I'm like, I literally have it every day. I'm like, I just feel like I'm so privileged and blessed beyond belief to have a career in doing this. There are months where I look at like monetization and things that I get, and I'm like, I can't believe, like, it's unfathomable to me, because I still have the teacher mindset of, as long as I match my teacher salary, I'm good. But like, there are months where like I surpass that, and I'm like, what a blessing to be like, what I wanted to do when I was like 12 years old, I get to do now. Like, I can integrate. If I want to go on a random trip to Australia and film a few videos, that I can, like, and I'm just like, yeah, I always say, like, if I were to die tomorrow, I would be happy that this was my last point of what I'm doing.
Aw. Yeah,
You-
that's
you
that's the
passed it.
dream.
That's amazing. I mean, it's been rare that we've asked that question and the person has answered with what they're doing right now. So that right there is huge.
But like, in all honesty, a year ago today, if you would have told me I would be right here doing it, I'd be like, there's no way. Like, because everything, like, as long as you just remain on it, you never know what opportunity can come. If you're putting good out into the world, like, and you're trying to do it on multiple platforms, there's more of a chance that opportunities can come to you than
Right.
if you spend every day being like, that video didn't do that well, so now I'm not going to post for a week because everyone hates me, when the reality is, no, just carry on working, just put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, you never know if you don't just put it out there, like something could just spark.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're having a good time and treating people well.
Speaking of having fun, what is one childlike quality that you think would be beneficial if adults utilized it in their daily lives?
Asking a teacher here.
Yeah.
I just honestly think having the concept to just dream. I think so often when people tell you about what they want to do, like, I remember applying and everyone telling me, you're not going to get placed. It's really hard to be placed at summer camp. I got placed at summer camp. I remember when I first met my wife and I said, I'm going to marry her. I'm going to move there. We're going to do this. Like, I knew within 2 months of meeting my wife that we were going to get married. And like, I went home, told my family that, and they're like, okay, then if that's what you want, like, go with the flow. Ended up getting married. I remember when we first started our visa paperwork, so many people were like, I have friends, this friend of a friend, who their parents are millionaires and they still took 3 years to get their marriage visa, whereas I did it and it went through seamlessly. Like, I feel like so often, and even when I started social media, people were being like, oh, well, is your school right with that? And just like, I feel like it's so often, and unfortunately, a lot of the time, it can even be people close to you, around you. Like, whenever you're trying to pursue something that goes outside of the norm or is risky, so often people, without even realizing it, like, put it down and will say like, oh, but be realistic. Like, oh, but if you go for that and you do content creation full time, what if you have a bad month and you can't afford your mortgage? Then what are you going to do? As opposed to being like, you're doing well, you're smart of what you want to do. I feel like so often it is just, and I think part of it comes down to that thought of like, if I'm here next to someone else that grew up in the same like place as me, same opportunities as me, if they succeed, I'm stuck here behind them. And I feel like it's that fear of being like, but if you do well, then that means I'm going to compare myself to you and I'm going to feel like my life isn't as good as yours. And I feel like that's the unfortunate thing, that so often when people do aim for things that are more risky and that do take a lot more work and effort and aren't considered traditional, so often people like start to put doubt in their heads and say like, but are you sure that this is like something that will last? So I think that's my main thing. I really wish that people were more open to the thought of like, if you want something and you're willing to put in the work to go for it, then you can get it. And, you know, just support them. You don't have to say like, oh, but are you sure that's going to work? Because if they think it is, if it doesn't, at least they tried. Like, I couldn't think of anything worse than living your life not trying anything and then wishing that you had sooner.
Yeah, because when a kid is like, oh, I want to be an Olympic athlete or I'm going to be the president, nobody says to them, oh, are you sure that's a realistic goal? Like they're 5, let them dream. When do we stop letting them aspire? That's so interesting.
Yeah, people suddenly start projecting like limiting beliefs. And, if you're not aligned to yourself and know who you are and know what you want to do, like sometimes you take those on and they become your own subconsciously, and you have to kind of untangle and unlearn them so you can really pursue what you want to. And I've noticed too, the only things that I regret are things that I didn't do.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like I don't ever regret trying something. I mean, maybe like a bad food or something, but like never like trying out to do something. And, if it didn't work, it's like, I didn't really lose anything. I know now I want to do this instead. And I look back and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have started this in, 2 years ago, because I'd be so far in it now. But if I don't start it now, in 2 years, I'll wish I started then. So that whole thing.
I remember like having that conversation early on when people are like, oh, like you and your fiance at the time, like you've only ever done long distance, like living together is a different ball game. Like, are you sure you're going to be able to last? All like this. And we'd be like, we literally communicate every day. Like our relationship is strong because in those first 2 years, all we had was communication. Like we don't argue like people that we know that have known each other, because if I'm having a bad day, I can communicate I'm having a bad day because of X, Y, Z. And similar to my wife, like, so we always say like, if we would have listened to the people being like, oh, well, you can't go for it because this will never happen because the visa will never get approved, we would be where we're at right now. And I just think like, we always went into it the mindset of we would rather like go for it, get married and see where this goes, than just be like, we're not going to put anything into this relationship because we're worried that it's more difficult to do long distance than it is to meet someone like on Tinder from down the road.
Yeah.
It's like, I think such a large portion of it is if you believe that what you're putting your heart and soul into is going to pay off, then you need to just go for it. Because if you don't, that's going to be something that you're going to regret down the line.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I feel like we just got an inspirational pep talk. I'm feeling good. I really do.
It's the teacher in me.
I know, but it's so good. It's so good because everyone is going to get something so positive out of hearing this.
From comedy to wisdom, Vinny, thank you for all of your insights. Seriously, it's so good. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see. Like, you're such a clear channel for the universe to work in your life from, way back in childhood through your current present moment. And it is really inspiring to hear stories like that. And it makes me, and I'm sure a lot of you who are listening, like want to even step more into like my true self and letting go of those limiting beliefs and going after our dreams. So yay. Thank you so much. That was so great.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. It's such a pleasure. And I mean, we're all across the world and we're sharing wisdom through Zoom. So it's all good.
I know. I was literally like a few weeks before you reached out, I was like, I want to do a podcast. How do I do a podcast? So I was like, I appreciate it. Like, I want to be on someone's podcast to see what it's like. Like,
have you ever been on one before?
No, this is the first one.
Oh my God, I'm honored.
We are honored.
It's so funny because about a few weeks ago, it popped into my head. My boyfriend used to be a teacher. He taught in China. Yeah. So like his friend sent him one of your teacher videos and I've like followed you ever since. And I was talking to Kristen. We're like, okay, like, what do we want to do? And I was like, we should just ask Vinny, like, what the heck? That'd be fun. And then here we are. It probably popped in our heads around the same time. So I love it.
So wild.
The universe, man, I'm telling you.
Before we let you go, if you would like to share with everyone listening all of the places that they can find you and anything exciting that's coming up that you feel like telling everyone about.
Okay, then. So my TikTok is MrThomasEnglish. My Instagram is VThomasEnglish because the other one doesn't, like, it's been taken. I don't know why. And then
rude.
I know. I keep checking it. When you can see if a username is available, I check it every month and it's still not. It's like a private account with like no followers. And I'm like, can I please have this? Like,
I hate that.
Go away.
And then YouTube is Mr. Thomas English. And then Facebook is also Mr. Thomas English. That's like my most recent one that I'm trying out. And then all I've got upcoming at the moment, and the main thing is the tour. And we start the Northeast leg, I think April 16th, I believe, on the Saturday.
That is a Saturday, yeah.
Okay, April 6th. Oh, I remembered it. That's good. Yeah, April 16th, we start our Northeast tour in Philadelphia. And then we're doing like the Northeast of America. And then after that, they're currently mapping out different US states for the summer. So I need to like go on my Instagram and be like, where do people want us to go? I'm like pushing for I'm like, I just want to do California and Arizona because they're like near me. I'm like, I don't want to keep flying all the way over to the other side.
Well, I mean, if you want to come to Orlando and then go to Walt Disney World, we would be happy to have you here.
There's an option.
I keep saying to like the tour manager, I'm like, why don't we have a day off in Orlando, go to Disney? Like you can film us, like put out content, like, and maybe Disney will see that and then you can get like a tour sponsor. So like, well,
there you go. I've hosted TikTokers before on tour, so it's possible. We will link all of those social channels and the link to your tickets in our episode notes too, in case you want to go see Vinny on tour. If I was in the States, I would totally want to go. It sounds like such a fun show. But
yeah, I just want to say as well, it is an ensemble tour. That's what I always say, because there's like a bunch of other like content creator teachers as well, and they're all hilarious. I always say, like, before we did the first leg, I didn't promote it as much because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna suck and I don't know what this is gonna look like. But now that I've done one leg, I'm like, no, I'm promoting this. Like, this is a great night out.
Oh, it is. It's a great night out. Everybody could use a laugh, but like Jess was saying, like you are equal parts hilarious and wise. And I think that's
Thank you.
The combination we all need. That is what we all need to expose ourselves to. So yeah, we will link all of those things so you can find Vinny and maybe go see him in person. I mean, if you're coming to Orlando, I'm going to be there.
Yes. All right. Well, that wraps up a wonderful conversation. Vinny, thank you again so much. It was such a pleasure to have you on ReDIScover and to spend our night with you. So join us next time for our next episode. And until then, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of ReDIScover.
If you haven't already subscribed, hit that button and join the ReDIScover fam.
If you're like us and you have opinions about everything, leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. Your positivity inspires our creativity, and we love hearing from you.
Join us every other Tuesday for brand new episodes full of rediscovery.
And each month has its own unique theme, so be sure to catch them all.
Follow us on Instagram at positively.kristen and at jessicafay508.
And check out Jess's blog at theroadjesstraveled with 1l.com.
Until next time,
bye!